Vecna, the master of the spider throne, and Springtrap, the hound of hell. These characters are related to supernatural stuff, as well as them getting beaten and killed by kids. Well, unless you are doing the whole Springtrap should be dead. Personally, I don't think he's dead. But anyways, this is a particular matchup that is much better for these characters because I seen Springtrap getting put on levels too low to too high, and Vecna being put on levels that are just too high. I don't see any Vecna stuff that put him too low. But anyways, let's get into their scaling. Starting with a long time ago, during the events of the late 40s to early 50s, there was a boy. A boy lived a pretty much normal life. His father was a soldier during the events of Vietnam, and his mother was just your average mother. And then something happened. This boy met somebody. This man told him that he was the one. He was confused. And in an act of fear and other stuff, he killed the man. And then he looked. The man had a briefcase. He removed what was in it, which was a rock, and then it went into him, changing him, shifting him. He had new powers, new strengths. He also grew a psychopath mentality, turning people, but specifically animals, on fire, as well as breaking people's bones. And then one day he discovered what his father's whole goal was during the war. And since he doesn't like killing, he basically killed his family and blamed it on his dad, making him go to jail. But the government knew better. They then kidnapped him, took him to a laboratory at his town, Hawkins Labs. They then took DNA from him to try to make another him. And they deemed this boy 001. But his real name was Henry. But you know him better as Vecna. But anyways, where does Vecna scale? Well, quite a bit. For a baseline, he should be at least wall level because he's able to casually kill humans just with his telekinesis and set animals on fire very easily. So that is just a mere baseline on how strong he is. And him as Vecna should scale above 11, with 11 being able to create portals to the upside down. These portals were confirmed by the show to be stronger than anything humanity can produce. Some people like to lowball this to building level, which I really don't see why. In fact, if we assume that it's just for the electricity that humanity produced in 1983, then this would be island level or large island level. So yeah, Vecna at this should be island level. And also you can use the nukes again to put him to mountain level, but that's kind of non factors in this. So yeah, he's pretty powerful. And also he had survived lightning, but that's just a mere small feat. So yeah, that's kind of it when it comes to his strength. He is wall level on a low end and large island level at a high end. We will talk about him with prep time later. Now on to speed and his abilities. Starting with speed, we don't really got a lot for him specifically. The best we can do is say that he is above things such as the Demogorgons, which can dodge some bullets, like a lot of bullets, and the fact that he was able to react to a flamethrower, which both of these should get him to the superhuman to subsonic level ranges, with him possibly getting even higher to supersonic. Now, for his abilities, that includes superior strength to normal humans, telekinesis, the ability to go into other people's minds, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so with all that out of the way, how strong is he overall? Vecna overall should have some city to island level attack potency. His striking strength should be very deep into those wall level ranges. You could argue small building level. His speed is at worst superhuman and at best supersonic. But now we will get to our other contender. Somewhere during the 1990s and early 2000s, there was a town called Hurricane just in Utah. It was pretty average, nothing special, except for one specific pizza joint called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And normally people just go there just to have fun and just to eat because there's nothing else to do there. It's mostly there just to attract tourists. But this place has a weird history. A very, very weird history. A long time ago, during the 80s, kids went missing. Nobody knew who the killer was, but people had connected it to the 83 bite and the death of one of the owner's children, Charlotte Emily. Nobody knows who it is, but we all know who it is. And he is in the walls of the building to this day until the upforcing future in Fazbear's Frights 30 years later. And his name is William Afton, but we know him as Springtrap. Let's get into Springtrap scaling. As a baseline, he should be casually in the wall level ranges of power, since he should upscale the animatronics, who should upscale the Fredbear animatronics, which can crush a skull to that magnitude, with him also being able to take down humans very easily and other things, yada yada. But we aren't here because of the wall level scaling. We are here for the bigger guns. So we got the Twisted animatronics, who survived an explosion that has been calculated to building plus, or small building to building plus. So there's nothing I have to disagree here with. The calculation seems pretty solid, and they should scale above this, so building to large building level is pretty casual for them as a bare minimum. And also, just to add on to this large building level scaling for the classic animatronics, they managed to no-sell the 1.21 gigawatts feat. And based on a bunch of calculations I did, it would be an equivalent of large building level for them to no-sell that. So large building level is a pretty good bench line for these characters' own strength, but there are some ways to get them higher, and it ironically with the same 1.21 gigawatts feat. So this is very downplayed in my opinion. Like, people don't really say that they didn't no-sell it, which based on everything we know, they did no-sell it. And also, there's a lot of stuff to account, like the fact that they no-selled it, and the fact that they absorbed this amount of energy to a long time, and the fact it's building up from a generator that produces this much energy per second. So, with some extra calculations and stuff like that, they should get from the small town to all the way to large town level. So they have the ability to absorb that amount of power on them, which means that they should be into those town to maybe large town plus almost small city. And William in his human form was able to one-shot them, basically. So yeah, they should be inferior to a human after, which means that at a lowest end, he would be around city block level, but at a higher end, he would be into the small city level ranges, which is pretty good. Now let's get into more of Springtrap scaling. As Springtrap, he survived the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 fire, which has been calculated to building plus all the way to larger building level. And there are some other contexts we need to talk about, like the fact that fire weakens the soul, basically severing them nearly from their animatronic bodies and all that stuff. So you can argue, which I would argue, that William was getting weakened by the fire, so he not only survived basically from a large building level fire, but he was also weakened during the time, which has some consistencies with him consistently always getting nerfed. Now let's get to other stuff, like Five Nights at Freddy's 6, where he is again in another fire. This time he's much weaker than his original Springtrap form. And remember, we're taking him at his prime Springtrap form. And it's likely not even Five Nights at Freddy's 3 Springtrap. But anyways, he's continuing with this. Yeah, he really doesn't show that much. Like I said, he's very weak. And now let's get into some other things, like Burn Trap. You see, Burn Trap is a controversial topic in the Five Nights at Freddy's community, with them saying that it is the Mimic, which I personally don't believe, but let's just assume that William is possessing the Mimic. Still, he not only survived fires that are calculated to wall level, but he also survived the Pizzaplex's power. Based on the size of the Pizzaplex and the size of everything else here, yeah, this should definitely get into somewhat in the large town to maybe low into city level, but it is a straight bench line to small city level, which this afternoon was again weakened during this time. And that's all he got in the games, unless you want to bring Glitch Trap in, and that is a whole nother can of worms that I'm not willing to get into. But anyways, now let's head on to the books. Now, I'll say this once and I'll say this again. The books are confirmed canon by Scott. They're just not in the same continuity. So things that happen in the books should be relative to the characters in the game. So basically, if a character can do this in the books, then it's likely that this character could do this in the games. So anyways, let's get into it. We got some stuff specifically for attack potency in this book series, specifically in Fazbear's Frights. So let's get into that. For one thing, Springtrap, or at least William's soul, was capable of one-shotting humans and destroying all of them, like withering them whole in the Stitch Wraith. This has been calculated by me to be into the mountain level ranges based on the subatomic destruction, and Springtrap should be above like normal souls, which as a baseline should at least be in the small planetary level ranges based on the fact that they are connected to the 0-point field, which has 0-point energy. And 0-point energy with the mass of a light bulb can boil all of Earth's oceans. But you can get this higher if you want to use subatomic destruction. If you want to use that, then that would make them small star level, which I could use, but I won't use for this one. So yeah, Springtrap's soul would at least be into the small star level ranges on a high end. And now we can get into the bigger stuff, specifically with Afton's soul. So basically, he stabbed Larson in the shoulder, and then he got in all of his victims' memories, William's victims. And Larson has stated that William's evil was beyond human comprehension, and humans can comprehend a lot of things, such as space and time and other things. But they also don't account for other things that humanity can also account, such as supergravity. If you don't know what that is, supergravity is basically this type of gravity that is in a higher dimensionality than normal reality and dimensionality, with it getting all the way to 11D. So you can argue that Afton is above that, so this would technically make him like low hyperversal, I think, like somewhere in that category. And again, this was a weekend Afton about to get disconnected from his body. He was losing his soul. He was barely grasping on life. Sure, Eleanor helped him, but it's very likely that Eleanor came from Springtrap, and like I said, Springtrap is extremely weak. So yeah, we got a new baseline for William when it comes to his lower ends, his higher ends, and all that stuff. Okay, now for the final product. Oh wait, forgot to add a few other things. So yeah, Foxy was capable of dodging a flashlight before it flashes, getting him to the sub-relativistic ranges, or sub-relativistic plus. Since Afton was able to blitz him, that should make him relativistic to relativistic plus, and this is him as a human. He also should upscale this kid's fear or sadness, which created a cloud that spans over miles, which should scale into large mountain level ranges to possibly even island level ranges, with the clouds dispersing being in the large island level ranges. Also, an average soul in the Five Nights at Freddy's world can create worlds that are in their own space times with starry skies and all that stuff. So, an average soul that Afton should upscale can create things such as space time and other things, which should get them to either multi-solar system all the way to Universal Plus, and Afton should upscale, which is pretty consistent, ironically. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's talk about Afton's full scaling. Springtrap's attack potency and all that other stuff should get him to small planetary all the way to possibly hyperversal. Possibly. Maybe. I don't know. His striking strength should get to wall all the way to city level, and his speed should get himself to the relativistic plus. And as for abilities, even though he doesn't have a lot to list here, I'm just gonna keep it blank. But his abilities are soul manipulation, soul decay, and a bunch of things relating to souls, slight regeneration, and all that stuff. So with both overall scaling finish, who wins? And why is it Springtrap? For one thing, Springtrap has superior strength, speed, durability, and other things. Like AP, striking strength, lifting strength, all that stuff, yada yada yada. He has the superior ones. He is also probably smarter, and his abilities are actually useful when it comes to a fight. He could just one tap him and bam, his soul would be destroyed. He could remove his soul. He could throw away his soul. He could do whatever he wants, and Vecna can't do anything about it. Like, Vecna really doesn't even have too much to work with. Like, sure, if you give him prep time and a few Demogorgons, maybe he could do some damage, but the Demogorgons are below William, and it's likely that it's gonna be that scene from the Invincible comics where they just jump on him and they just turn into pools of blood, because Springtrap is just several times stronger than they'll ever be. So yeah, Springtrap wins. But what do you all think? Did I lowball Vecna? Did I overrate Springtrap? Say your opinions in the comments below. And also, if you want me to put Springtrap in the Chainsaw Man universe and see how far it goes, make sure to give me like 30 likes. I am willing to do it. But anyways, may God bless you and have a wonderful day. See ya.